Holy City Center Radio. It is episode 45, coming to you a little bit earlier. We had a couple of podcast interviews in the bank, so here's another one for you to check out. Today's guest is Stephen Huskey. He is a financial advisor and president of Huskey Financial Planning. He is also the host of the Portfolio Pulse, the money podcast for medical professionals and entrepreneurs, which I was recently a guest on. And full disclosure, he is my financial advisor as well. And he had me, as I mentioned, on his podcast. So happy to return the favor and discuss some things that, people don't always think about, saving for the future, planning for the future. And he'll have some great insight for us, today. So be sure to listen and you'll get some free tips. But definitely check out Huskey Financial Planning. They've done a great job for me and definitely recommend him. So without any further ado, let's check in now with my interview with Stephen Huskey. Joining me now is Stephen Huskey, my guest today. He's a financial advisor and president of Huskey Financial Planning. He is also the host of the Portfolio Pulse podcast, which I was recently a guest on. And so now he's here. We're returning the favor. Stephen, thank you so much for joining me today.
Man, pleasure to be on this podcast. Appreciate you, Christian.
No problem. I already gave the full disclosure at the top that you were also my financial advisor. But that means when I told everybody, I recommend you and you should go see Stephen, that they know I mean it because you are helping me. So
thank you.
No problem. But before we get into all that, first, just so folks know a little bit about you, just a general background. Where are you from? What brought you to South Carolina if you weren't here? Family life, just general background so people can get an idea of who you are.
Thank you. Yes. So I was born in Charlotte and grew up in Greenville, South Carolina. So I do claim both Carolinas. Been in Charleston since 2007. So coming up on 15 years, I guess I could consider myself a local, but I don't think the locals would consider me native yet.
No, not yet.
I have a beautiful two beautiful daughters and one wife of 6 years, and just brings light to my eyes just to try to spend as much time with them and support them as well. And got into financial planning and advising after roughly 9 years in corporate banking and did all kinds of various roles there. But I just felt like seeing so many friends and families struggle to find help. They just needed help with mapping out their financial future. So felt a better calling. And that's why I started doing this, with all my licenses and just really enjoy what I'm doing.
So my next question was going to be what made you get into the field. You basically just touched on that. When you did decide, hey, I want to help people out, did you, start with another company before creating your own, or were you able to start your own, financial planning business right away?
So I was in branch management for a long time with corporate banks and moved into a wealth banker role there. And that's how I got my, 766, life, accident, health, all of those that you need to help others with. And I got kind of tired of the rigmarole and felt a higher purpose than just helping people with credit and banking. And, while that's good and well, I think there's a lot left untouched, very piecemeal transactions in that type of role. But I chose working with medical professionals and business owners, not only because are these individuals extremely busy in their day-to-day lives, they're usually undereducated and underserved in the financial space. And so we feel a sense of duty to help our heroes and small business entrepreneurs. So after years in the business, just having developed a reputation for educating individuals in an easy to understand manner, so they can grasp personal finance and use these concepts to pursue their financial objectives, it's just a better commitment for our community, I believe.
And you kind of touched on this as well, but for those who don't know, on a basic level, what exactly does a financial planner do? What do they not do that some people might think you do? Could you just talk about what exactly it is you do on a day-to-day basis?
Sure. So unfortunately, the word advisor has sort of a negative connotation in the financial world. And it's because I think we're unclear about our motives or objectives and also our specialties. And so I try to, instead of telling people that I'm a financial advisor or a planner, I just try to help them, tell them I help business owners feel more confident and educated in their goals and ways to accomplish them. Financial advisors could be, investment advisors. They could be commission-based, fee-only, fee-based. There's just a whole lot of things that we do. And so I think working with one that's specialized in your industry or in your area could be the best fit for helping you with your particular goals.
Makes sense. And for people listening, who might be thinking, I handle my own finances, I got this. Why should they consider working with someone like you?
Well, they have every right because they work so hard to be super emotional about their money. And so usually, according to a Dalbar study over the past 30 years, average equity investors, which are the regular people, they tend to do about 2% worse than the actual S&P 500. So working with an advisor who's unemotional about your money can help you make good decisions, help you create a financial mission statement that aligns with your goals, priorities, family, business, whatever it is you want to do, and just help you stay true to that. I like to call it an accountability buddy, someone who's there for you, someone you've told your goals to, and someone who can help you make them a reality.
What's the, people who, again, work on their own, which, as you mentioned, totally within their right, totally normal. But what is the biggest mistake that you see people who try to do things on their own? Is there one thing that overriding when people come to you or talk about their finances, that what's the biggest thing that comes to your mind that they're doing wrong?
Well, there's a lot of misconceptions and myths out there. We try to dispel those myths and a lot of water cooler talk. A little less of that now since we're a lot of work from home. But I feel like everybody's kind of a financial advisor out there. Everyone's got advice that they want to give or take. And so how do you sift through all that information and make decisions that are actually pertinent to you? There's a lot of specialists, gurus, pundits that are out there, and they are able to give blanket advice that they think suits everybody. But, do they know your entire financial picture? Do they know situations that you have today, 1 year, 3 years, 5 years out that are going to impact you? Do they know how, your tax brackets work? Do they know how, all of the different pieces of income coming in can be allocated for different things? Do they know that you're saving for different priorities or goals? I think a good advisor or a planner can help you piecemeal out different parts of your savings for different goals. And so that's the kind of strategies that we help our clients with.
Coming out of the pandemic, many businesses saw shifts or trends in their clientele or the way they were doing business. Did you notice anything significantly different in people's habits or in your field when it came to post-pandemic? Well, I mean, we're technically still in the pandemic, but now, basically 3 years into this thing, have you noticed any big differences, whether it's your own business or your clients' needs or desires?
That's a great question. I believe at first a lot of decisions were made out of fear, not really knowing what the next steps were, not knowing if jobs were going to hold, not knowing if families were able to put food on the table. And so there were just a lot of either people staying stagnant or staying with the status quo and not making many big decisions. And so I think that now they're kind of, I feel like coming out of the pandemic, people are more open to it. You can tell with airlines and groceries and all these things that people are doing, they're actually open to spending more money. I think inflation, again, has kind of quelled that. It's up to 8.5% right now. So that's been kind of tough.
Oh, yeah, without a doubt. I'm sure that's made a lot of people have to change, their plans, or they're not able to save as much or whatever it may be. I mean, every industry seems to be touched by the pandemic, and obviously anything involving finances is going to be right up at the top. Without giving away your services for free, of course, what is something simple people could do? And I know, it's hard to give like a blanket thing, but is there something simple people could do or should be doing to plan for their future that you think anybody can do without, again, without giving away any services for free or
Sure.
I know it'll be blanket advice, but will work for just about anybody.
I think taking care of the quick and dirty first kind of makes sense. Sitting down either by yourself or with your partner and just going through your finances. I mean, I do this myself. I go through and print off all of my statements and I look at 3 months of expenses that I've spent over the past 3 months and average them out and get a good feel for, what I'm spending in each categories. And that's a good baseline for what your normal lifestyle expenses look like. I think a lot of people have the head in the sand syndrome where they don't really want to look at it or they just want to keep spending freely. And while that's fine, you're not going to have the best advantage when it comes to using your money properly. I'm a big believer in financial organization. So if you can, aggregate all of your investments and savings and liabilities and all of those things onto one page, it makes it very easy. There's free tools like Personal Capital and Mint.com that you can use to really get a understanding of your assets and liabilities, which ultimately create your net worth. Growing that net worth over time is going to be really important for an accumulator, which is a saver, someone in their 30s, 40s, and 50s. And then as you want to start decumulating those assets when you get to retirement, you want to know how that money translates into income. So there's planning for all types of people, and there's different types of plans for every stage of life. And so I think it's important to get those baseline items done first. And if you feel like you may need some help and you're used to doing things yourself, maybe just hire an advisor or a planner on a on a project basis. Having them help you with a couple things here and there, and if you like them and build and trust them and think that they can help you with more, then maybe give them more opportunities to assist.
I think it's some great advice. And, when listening, I heard some things that I have been very guilty of in the past and still today. And I think I've told you in our discussions that sometimes talking about finances and the ins and outs and investing and all that can just make my eyes glaze over. Like, this is, I'm a terrible adult, and adult things, make me be like, So how important is it for you to, when you have folks like me, to be able to relate to them and kind of make it easy? Obviously you're a professional, you've been doing this for years, you've got the background in it, so you can, talk about this stuff. But for people who don't necessarily understand it, you must have a way that you try to, bring it down to their level and their understanding to not make it seem so daunting.
Yeah, I think it all starts in the initial meeting as well. It's about getting to know them, what keeps them up at night, what achievements do they want to celebrate, and who do they want to celebrate them with. So instead of thinking about just money as numbers and goals as numbers, think about the people, places, things, and events that money allows you to do, spend time with and be present for, and all those things. If you just think about the end result, because we want to keep, the plan going with the end in mind. If you think about all those things that the money affords you to do, that's a really good place to begin. And sometimes it's okay to say to the advisor, or to the advisor to say to the potential client, like, hey, this just might not be a good fit. I have different philosophies, and you're staying true to some things maybe that you have some predispositions. That's totally okay to not have a good fit. So if you are going to speak with someone, feel them out, maybe interview a couple different people, find one that you actually truly like. You're going to be spending a lot of time with them, and you want someone who knows you and your family and can celebrate the achievements, but also help you during the challenges. And I think that's a super important part. It's a very intimate relationship with that person.
Shifting gears slightly, it still involves your field, of course. You have a podcast, as I mentioned, Portfolio Pulse, the money podcast for medical professionals and entrepreneurs. What made you decide you want to start a podcast?
Well, at first, I thought it was more of a differentiator. Now I feel like everybody and their grandmother has a podcast. I just wanted to give as much great, valuable educational information away for free as possible, because if more people can find you and more people like your content and they follow you for a while, hopefully they'll reach out when something comes up. I want to be top of mind when that person has a challenge. And so that's kind of why I did that. And that's why I'm so active on social media. I'm trying to give away all the good tips and tricks that I hear through planning, or sharing some client wins without naming names, and just talking about the type of work that we can do and the type of money we've saved people. And, there's different tax challenges out there for business owners. There's different personal achievements that need to be done, especially with individual planning. And so knowing the ins and outs of both of those, there's always a learning experience. I want to keep continuing to get credentials. I want to continue to learn, and that only helps my clients overall.
And your podcast isn't always just about, finances. Obviously, it's going to skew that way. But, you've had all sorts of different guests on. You had me on, for instance, and we talked more about Charleston and my business and how I handle it. What sort of guests do you have on? I know it runs the gamut. Like I said, it's not just people in your field necessarily.
Yeah, there's something out there for everybody, and I kind of want to be able to be relatable on many different levels. And so I've had people such as yourself, a self-made blogger who's turned this into a successful business. I've had people who create educational courses for corporate people in HR, or for CEOs who want their employees to learn maybe a new culture, things like that. I've put people on who are in the legal field, corporate contracts, different legal considerations for businesses. And so working with medical professionals and small business owners, that kind of encompasses quite a bit of people. So I just want people to know that there's different things out there for them. And I think I've got about 40 episodes out there right now with mine, and I think there's something for everybody.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you have a nice, mix of guests. So if anyone listening, like I mentioned before, gets kind of like, oh man, finances and being an adult, like it's not like that. It's entertaining. There's all sorts of different guests, and you do learn some things from it as well, which is great.
Thank you.
No problem. And stepping away from that, let's, being the Holy City Center radio podcast, we're all about Charleston. What do you and your family like to do outside of work, or here in Charleston specifically? Is there any places you guys like to go, or anything in particular you like to do around town?
Well, since I've got two young daughters, one's 3.5, one's 9 months, I like to kind of take them out to the public parks and hang around on the the playgrounds, and we go to the beach occasionally. We'll go to Pitt Street Bridge. I like to run a lot. So when my kids are a little bit younger and could fit into strollers, I like to take them on runs around the neighborhood and just, be with them and present and make sure that we're spending quality time together.
For sure. Yeah. We don't talk about a lot of family events on my show because, being a single man with no children, I might need to keep asking you for some tips so I can tell the parents that are listening, hey, here's some fun stuff you can do with kids. Because, like I said, I'm not always looking for those things.
We need a Stevens segment on your blog.
What to do with your family in Charleston this month with Stephen Huskey. Yeah. I mean, hey, yeah. I might need it.
I'm happy to help.
Good. For everybody that's listening that is interested in learning more, where can they find you and everything involving your business and your podcast?
Well, I've got at Huskey Financial, Huskey Financial on most social platforms, specifically LinkedIn and Facebook, which I use a lot. I use Instagram sparingly when I can. But I've also launched another business geared specifically towards helping dentist practice owners, and we're launching that very soon. It's called Blue Water Dental Advisors, and you can find us at bluewaterdentaladvisors.com and my original site, huskyfinancial.com as well.
Awesome. Is there anything that we didn't touch on that you think's important or you wanted to share while we've got you here?
I can understand definitely why it is either scary or, you might have had a bad experience in the past in working with an advisor. Maybe someone who took advantage of a situation or charged you too much money, wasn't fully transparent. I would say, give it another shot. Think about some of the things you can do, some of the different financial elements that maybe are hampering you right now, or maybe some things that you're just not really sure about or need some education. Find one that's willing to spend some time with you, give you as much knowledge, education, security, confidence, and clarity moving forward, and allow you to make decisions that you think are in your best interest.
Perfect advice. Stephen, thank you so much for joining me. It was awesome getting to talk to you.
Thanks, Christian. Appreciate you.
That's it. Thank you so much to Stephen Huskey for stopping by today and discussing everything about finances, planning for the future, and all the other great topics we talked about. It was a treat to have him on. And as I mentioned before, I was on his podcast not too long ago, so you should go check that out. He's got some awesome episodes involving some of the stuff we talked about today as well. So if you're interested in more, that's a great resource. Again, it's called the Portfolio Pulse Podcast, the money podcast for medical professionals and entrepreneurs. He's obviously happy to help anybody, and no matter what field you're in. And as I mentioned, he is my financial advisor, and I highly recommend him, whether it's his podcast or his services. He'll be happy to help you out. Thank you so much for listening. Thank you to Lindsay Marie Collins of LMC Sound System and F&B Radio, a local podcast. She produces each and every episode. And speaking of every episode, they include music from Tyler Boone. So thank you to him. I'm so thankful to have his awesome tunes on every single show for you all to rock out to as we start and end each podcast. And as always, you can support Holy City Center by going to patreon.com/Holy City Center, picking up some merchandise at holycitycenter.com/shop. And as always, if you can't use that, put any money towards Patreon or purchase anything, totally fine. Rating and reviewing the podcast helps out. Liking, retweeting, sharing stories, all that stuff all adds up and helps out the work I do here, and I greatly appreciate all of that. And with that, we'll see you at the next show. Should be another good one. Until then, good night and good luck.